Welcome to another portfolio review. This time, the request was from Ronaldo. Ronaldo is a big fan of the stream, and he says, "Hey all, the Mighty Glaive just gave me a sub and I was like, I have to abuse that." True. Okay then, I just started the freelance life a couple of months ago. Let me lower down that. A couple of months ago. And how God, it is tough. Getting clients to actually come and hire me takes such a big chunk of the month that the remaining time is just not enough to make all the endeavor profitable. I thought my book was solid enough, but there is clearly something that I'm doing wrong. So Silva Sensei, I would need some pointers from an experienced professional. That is me. I'm mostly gunning for splash art type of gig at the moment. Maybe I should focus on something else. I just don't know. But I do. And the answer is very simple. Don't do splash art. It's incredibly difficult to... First of all, I'm looking at your portfolio, and I'll say this in the nicest way possible, you still need to like get better to get the type of work that you're probably looking for. And splash art, the thing about it is that it's cool and it can pay well, but first of all, it's on the higher end of, quote unquote higher end of art skills, and also there's not a lot of it. Just by the sheer amount of requests, or actually the lack of, I'm kind of matching this, the lack of commissions. And think about it for a moment. Something has to be developed first, gone through the whole pre-production, and then post-production is when you start adding things like advertisement, splash art, stuff like that. That's where you're trying to... currently, based on what you said, that's where you are trying to get work at, and there's just not a lot of it. Not a lot of games, not a lot of... specifically for splash art, it's a very niche. Again, also another thing is that it is very niche, but there is quite a bit of work for it, as long as you're like really good. And I'm not saying that you're not good at all. That's not it. I'm looking at your portfolio and there's definitely very interesting images, and we'll talk about it in a second. But I just wanted to address the main issue is that you definitely need to get heaps better if you want to get splash art type of commissions. I would say the next best thing that actually gives you more work, or there's just more amounts of, is like card art. That would be like the next kind of like step. But even then, card art is quite niche. I mean, there's a lot of card games, etc. But from what I can see, that you know, even just judging you from the thumbnails, from what I can see, even then, I would recommend you to maybe focus on other things that would be easier for you to get work first, while you're still improving in art and everything else. So that is the quick sort of answer to you know, I can... Here's a good point. Here's the good point of your portfolio, is that you wouldn't need to tell me that you wanted to do splash art, because one look at this and I can tell that you want to. That is actually really, really good. So many times, I'll speak for myself. When I was art directing, it was very difficult to know, and I would be maybe wary of hiring someone where the portfolio is a little too... it lacks focus. With you, I can pretty much take one good look at it and be like, oh, I want to hire this guy. Sadly, it can also go the other way around, which is, oh, I don't want to hire this guy because he clearly wants to do splash art. However, if I was looking for splash art artists and I saw your portfolio, like, no doubt that I could trust more your portfolio versus someone else's, because it is clear that's exactly what you want to do and you have fun doing. The only thing holding you back is your art skills. Like your fundamental, especially color. I mean, I'm gonna get more into your portfolio here in a second. But hi, Morkenny, how are you doing? The supply of people that can do it is higher than the demand. That's how it would seem like. That's not what I meant. What I meant is that there's not good enough people. I can tell you, for example, I've done a splash art sometime. I almost never mind. I've done a splash art, and then shortly after, I was for a game that doesn't really have that many splash arts, for example, which is Vainglory. I've done a splash art, and literally like a week later, they're asking me to do another one. And as long as I do a great job, they're going to keep coming back until their stock is off. So it's not the lack of... There's plenty of other amazing artists way better than me that they could definitely do the job. But there's other elements that you don't know of that you can land the job or not. For example, they might have wanted a different artist. That artist is busy or maybe even expensive, so they go to the next best thing. I know it sucks, and as an AD, I always, or as an ex-AD, I always strive for hiring people that are perfect fit for the job. But at the same time, it is a business, so I have to choose multiple people that are perfect for the job. Of course, there's the one that fits the most, but if that guy is not available, or he's just like way too expensive for the budget that we have, then I'm gonna have to go for the second best. These are really fun and energetic. I'm gonna get into the absolutely. I'm gonna get into the portfolio now. You have, honestly, dude, you have really good. You have a really good portfolio. Literally, the only thing stopping you is your art skills, which I guess it could be painful, but be happy, because most people is the opposite, where, for example, if you were, I'll tell you right now, and this is true, not paid comment. If you and me were at the same skill if you were at the same skill level as me, you would get heaps more work than me, for example. Just looking at your portfolio and everything you're going for, you would be way more successful than in getting work than me, like, no doubt. Let's click through the images. You're doing everything correct, man. Like, this is not really gonna be much of a portfolio review. I'll try to help you with where to focus as far as your fundamentals go, but like, obviously, yeah, let's start with the fundamentals. You have, your mind is in the right place, man. You have really good ideas. It's fun to look at, regardless of your skill level. I'm stripping that away from my mind, and I'm just looking at what is the image, what is happening, right? And you have good ideas. Your compositions aren't terrible. This one is actually pretty bad, and I'll explain why. You should never crop a character's head, especially for splash art. Remember, I can tell that maybe you are getting influences from League or whatever. I'm just looking at the process pages here. Maybe you which I admire, and I would recommend maybe you research how other people post their splash arts. Art directors need like, I'm just fucking no, I'm kidding. They like why am I weird on the portfolio review? art directors love seeing progress shots, thumbnail sketches, like early stuff, because it is still a business. I need to see how good the what can I expect from you as the first drafts, you know? So you're leaving very little to guess here as an AD, and that is a very, very good thing. You're showing the process shots, so I can tell what kind of steps you make. Here's the thing: this can be a double edged sword, double sword edged. Now, this could be a double edged sword, because if your process looks messy, then I'm gonna be like, you know. But if you have a solid process that you know, I can tell that your process isn't really that bad. Then I would be more. You would be a safer bet to hire you. You know. Oh, I was talking about composition. Never crop heads like this or put them at the very edge or whatever. Always show the heads clearly. I can see at least in 2 compositions here where you cut the head quite a lot, which is B and D. Don't do that. Remember that in splash art, chances are they're going to reuse that art, because usually splash art is expensive. So think about from a spending point of view, like you want to reuse the thing you paid so much money for over and over again as many times as possible to get sort of like revenue back type of, at least that's the mentality of it. Yeah, I love how well formed he is in Riot art process. He looks pretty close to the artist. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I would recommend you get a book called Framed Ink. It's the #1 book as far as composition goes. It's the holy grail. It's the Bible of compositions for me. I always recommend it to anyone where I see that their compositions might be an issue. Obviously, proportions. I think you're drawing anatomy. I mean, anatomy is one of those things that everyone can always get better at all times, no matter how good you are. I think your main issue, the worst of the 2 evils, is your proportions. Your proportions, and then next would probably be I want to say gesture, but like gesture mostly due to perspective. If you're doing the splash art stuff, then being very, very good at foreshortening is, you know, it's something that's been sort of like established. I'm going to keep scrolling through. Yeah, so this one is way better as far as your foreshortening goes. In this area, the hand is way too big. Again, I think it's a proportion issue. Once again, I think your mind is in... I almost feel frustrated for you because you are being held back by your fundamentals. That's really it, because A, B, C, and D, if I was your art director, and I have art directed for Arena of Valor, which is... out of all the MOBAs, is the one that makes the most money, which is in the mobile one from Tencent. I would have picked D as well. If you sent me these sketches look actually pretty good. Your rendering is lacking a little bit, quite a bit, for the type of splash arts that you're going for. And one thing that you can improve is your values. Oftentimes you go to pure white and pure black. Look at this hand. There's like really, really bright on the hand, on the thumbs and everything else. And just looking at the thumbnails, I can tell that. You go way too bright and you go way too dark. And if the room was pretty dark, which it doesn't seem to be, the hall behind him seems pretty dark. There's areas that blend, like the room on the back is blending with the top of his head. Again, the head needs to be impeccable, especially for a splash art type of work. Like, out of everything, the head needs to be the selling point. It needs to be the best thing rendered. It has to have the most contrast. It needs to be the clearest to see. It is the money maker from a from a product point of view. I like some of the angles you got going on here. I think you're generally picking the best thumbs out of the 4 ones that you make. That might not be necessarily a very good thing. It might mean that all of your thumbnails are weak and only one is kind of like better than the others. So you need to be aware of that. Always strive to make each thumbnail as competitive to choose as the next one, right? And I'm not saying that you're not doing that. I'm just saying that always keep that as oh, you don't have any of them here. I like that you have another thing you're doing well. Again, you are you have multiple characters, so like you have a set here, which this is great. Like as a portfolio, many people here watching, like I think this is a good thing. I still think you should show early, again, just for jobs, just for people to commission you. I think you should still show early processes everywhere you can. So like maybe you can have a set of all the images completed, but as I scroll down, maybe I can see their sketches. That would be very helpful for me to see, or for me to hire you. Here's a sketch, but it doesn't match with any of these. Oh, these are just doodles as well. What else? Colors. Again, another fundamental issue. You go way saturated. Everything is like candy color, if you know what I mean. Everything is popping. There's no sense of, especially this one, there is no sense of hierarchy as far as your color goes. So what that means is you need to pick a main color, right? And here would be pink, right? But if you make literally everything pink, then the main color is not a focal point anymore, which generally it goes hand to hand. Main color should always be contrasting and be a focal point, should be the first thing you see. But here, because everything is pink, even this really, really saturated pink does not. The only thing saving your focal point here is just how bright it really is, and maybe a bit of the blue on the headband. But you need other colors. I'd say, like, specifically for this image, I would maybe leave 30% pink and everything being other colors, so that the pink really like pops out, and it would be mainly around her head. Again, the values comment that I said earlier on, I would definitely apply it here. You go way too bright, way too dark, as far as values go. Your thumbnails are like, do you get lost in the render? I feel like you get lost in the render. Yeah, Legends of Runeterra cards have amazing colors, would probably be a good reference. That's a very good suggestion. I mean, I personally have been addicted to looking at their art literally every single day. Hi, Holling, how are you doing? I feel like you get lost. Your thumbnails are actually really good, man. And then something happened to my internet. Load? Oh. Yeah, I do feel like you are getting lost in your renders. I mean, your drawings aren't necessarily like really correct, quote unquote correct. I feel like you can improve your line art. Not your line art quality. I think you have good line art quality. I'm just looking at, let me pick a different one. Yeah. Again, you're doing a good thing as far as just the line art quality goes. You're doing, you're keeping the thickness on the main forms, and as you go smaller and smaller in detail, you make your brush either, I don't know if you make it thinner or you make it less, you make it brighter. Either way, the way you do line art is really good. Again, you have the head is in the right place, but your drawing skills, I mean, honestly, your fundamental skills, I would go full on throttle with focusing on that. Namely, for characters, I'd say proportions and then gesture / perspective. Yeah, yeah, for example, I'm looking at the process here. The initial sketches, I see you even add a perspective grid to it, and then you get lost. So you really, 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 really need to look into where. Yeah, I feel like right there, like right here, you get lost there. So you have a really good base, man. Like this sketch looks great, and then you get lost. You're also striving for storytelling, which is great. You know, small or big. There's this, you know, two dudes just having it. I wouldn't call this. I'm not sure if I would call this splash art, but I mean, again, your mind is in the correct place. You know, like this girl carrying, like saving the baby. I could see this scene redrawn. The composition isn't actually too bad. The body of the character is way too far off the canvas. Like we need to show her more. Right now, the thing being cut. What is this? Oh, it's a arrow. The arrow being cut is a nice touch, but it's too much of a focus. Definitely should be a focus, don't get me wrong. But again, priorities. Character priority number 1. Action number 2. So she's just too much off the canvas here. And I think you're limited by your gestures. Like she feels very stiff. You know. There's some, yeah, your colors go like, I'd say that's the next main issue, even more than render, is you go way too saturated on it, on everything. Now, I'm kind of, nowadays, as far as color goes, I'm afraid of even commenting on it because maybe you are colorblind. Again, I'm not dissing, please don't lol. Like it's a real thing that we got to consider nowadays. There's more and more artists that, you know, they're painting and then they might be colorblind. I mean, I'm not saying you are, or your art looks like it would be colorblind. I am not saying that. I'm just saying that maybe that could affect the colors you pick. But if you're not, then tone down the saturation. Kind of rude. Listen, it is a true issue. I am being omega sincere. You wanted to avoid being, okay, I'm done. Anyways, I'm actually done with your portfolio review. I didn't mean to offend. I'm not saying that your work looks like it would be. I'm just saying that I'm seeing too much of the same problems where you did so many images and maybe you just haven't noticed. That you're going way too hard on the colors. But I also have like colorblind artists, friends that, you know, is just something can't be helped. I mean, it can be, but there's tricks you can do for it. But anyways, I'm done. I see what you mean, John. Thank you, Wollstonecraft. This concludes the critique for Ronaldo. Again, thanks to Glaive for giving you a sub. Enjoy your sub, and I'll see you on the next one. Here we go. Goodbye.